All right, Western red cedar, as I said before, is our best option available to us now. It's not really a true cedar, but the trade name is Western red cedar, and it refers to the species of tree called Thuja plicata. It grows in the Pacific Northwest, and it has displaced redwood as kind of the premier exterior wood. You can get some pretty nice looking stuff for your deck. Um, all of the trim that we try and use is finger jointed prime cedar, which again is the best kind of realistic option that we have. Okay, it's very soft, just like redwood. People use screws or nails to attach it to the deck. And then one interesting thing about Western red cedar is it contains thujaplicin, which apparently can be used or is being researched as like a treatment for cancer or something like that. Ipe is an exotic hardwood that comes from South America, and unfortunately, it's not, for the most part, being harvested very sustainably. Okay, I would say that you shouldn't buy Ipe because of the ecological devastation that comes along with importing like rainforest woods from South America. There are some sustainably harvested woods, certainly, and I think that Almquist tries to do the best that they can to purchase sustainably harvested woods, but I think we all know what's going on in the rainforest, and I would say that we probably shouldn't be buying this, but people love this stuff. It is highly resistant to decay. It is really, really hard. You can't nail it. You can't just drive a screw into it. You have to pre-drill everything. So if that's what you want to do, great. But I would just say that the biggest problem with decks is the framing falls apart long before the decking ever goes bad. Okay, I've seen some deck boards that have rotted, obviously, but most of the time it's the framing that's completely shot, and it's heartbreaking to me to come along to these decks and find just beautiful old growth redwood that's perfectly fine, could probably do another 100 years, but it's attached to completely rotted and destroyed framing materials, and you can't really pull it apart. It just gets destroyed. So I would say it's important to think about ways to protect the framing rather than get some decking material that's going to last 300 years. Okay, because it's not going to matter. You're going to be rebuilding the deck long before this decking material falls apart. Okay, talk about one more option here: Trex decking, and again, that is the brand name. And if we were to talk generically, we're talking about composite decking. And so what this stuff is it's plastic, it's recycled plastic and sawdust. And that sawdust gives it enough of a structure to keep itself together and give it enough of a like wood look and feel of wood. Okay. And so, according to Trex, they are able to divert 100,000 tons of plastic every year to make their decking, which I think is very admirable. 95% of that material is recycled. Okay, it's pretty neat stuff. You can get all sorts of different colors. You can bend it. You can kind of make some cool designs with it. Problems are it's really expensive. It's really heavy. It can't span the way wood does. So I said, before, if you're using 2x6 cedar or something like that, no problem with the 24-inch spacing on your floor joist. I would say if you're going to use Trex, at most a 16-inch span, maybe less, just because you're going to end up with the Trex bending in the middle if it's overspanned. And it has to be screwed down. Okay, they have some kind of concealed fasteners that you can use that are kind of cool, but it kind of looks not very nice when you screw it from the top down through the face. The plastic kind of like boils around it, and it looks kind of weird. Okay, so you're going to want to use some sort of concealed fasteners. Check out this video. It shows you how those concealed fasteners work, and kind of like pumps you up about Trex. All right. I just want to be really clear, and this is something that I don't think people really understand. The deck's going to last 25 years, okay? And that's if you do certain things to it and take care of it, okay? All the wood that's in the deck is going to decay, it's going to break down via fungus and insect attack. And the composite materials, if you're using Trex or something like that, those are going to break down from UV exposure, okay? People think if they buy Trex, they're going to buy a lifetime deck, okay? But remember, it's still attached to wood underneath. That wood is outside. That wood is not properly getting vented where the deck boards attach to the floor joists. And that's usually where I see problems, okay? That connection point, okay? Because it gets wet, but then it can't dry out, okay? And then Trex, it's just gonna break down from being exposed to the sun, okay? Termites aren't gonna eat it, water's not gonna bother it, fungus isn't gonna grow on it, but the sun's gonna break it down and just turn it into mulch eventually. But again, the biggest thing, it doesn't matter what kind of decking material you use, these joists are just going to rot far before the decking ever has any problems. These joists are going to rot, okay? And if you were foolish enough to try and attach your deck directly to the house without using any spacers or anything like that, that whole side of the house is going to be rotten as well, okay? Never ever do that. Okay, this is a picture of a deck that was attached to a house, and it's just totally rotten, okay? This is a disaster, and people still do it all the time, okay? So if you absolutely have to attach that deck to the house, use some spacers, seal up those penetrations as best you can, okay? This is common for me now. This is just standard procedure. All of the deck joists, all of the girders are going to be wrapped over the top with this flashing tape, okay? And that's just going to protect horizontal surfaces where water's going to sit, where they're not going to be properly ventilated. That's going to protect those surfaces and prolong the life of that deck a little bit. Theoretically, they'll seal up around the fastener as well. If you go around every year and power wash your deck and seal it up with something, it will protect the wood. I don't think it's going to be so much protection against like fungus and insect damage, maybe a little bit, but primarily it's going to protect it from UV exposure, and it's going to seal the wood somewhat so it isn't as responsive to changes in humidity and moisture levels. So to kind of sum this all up, the decks are going to be very similar to our floor system. Same basic principles. The trick is everything's exposed now, okay? Everything is going to be getting wet and rained on and snowed on, okay? And baked in the sun, okay? So you have to think about, yeah, we're building this just like the house, but build it knowing that it's only going to last so many years, no matter what. That thing's just going to rot. Let that rot and don't let it get into the house, okay? Two separate things, okay? Try to avoid, if you can, having your deck above 30 inches from finished grade so that you don't have to put a guardrail in, okay? Guardrails can be nice, I guess, if you have to have them, but if you have a deck, you don't want to be looking at a guardrail, and then it's also going to add material and labor costs to your deck. If you have to have a guardrail, make sure that it meets the code, okay? Make sure that a 4-inch sphere can't pass through any part of that deck. Make sure that it's 42 inches from the top of the deck to the top of the guardrail, okay? And make those pickets symmetrical. Go back and watch that picket spacing formula part of the video and make sure that you can lay out those pickets in such a way that each panel is symmetrical and even, okay? And then just use appropriate materials. Pressure treated lumber for the framing, and then some sort of decay resistant wood or material for the decking itself, and corrosion resistant fasteners. So thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know if you have any questions.